truth seekers. Welcome back. Zach here. It's Monday, March 6th, 2017. CNN's big headline this morning, birth of a conspiracy theory. This story is attached to this weekend's news. The morning of March 4th, Donald Trump put out a tweet saying the Obama administration had wiretapped his campaign. The next day, the FBI came out and said that that was an unfounded claim. Now this morning, CNN is saying how the Trump administration is beginning a history of being involved with conspiracy theory. You might recall even before Trump took office, after winning the election, it was reported that one of his early cabinet members, Michael Flynn Jr., had to resign for tweeting about Hillary Clinton being involved in the Pizzagate scandal. If you don't know what Pizzagate is, it was a conspiracy theory that emerged after the election saying Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and Democratic Party leadership were running a sex trafficking ring out of Washington, D.C., a pedophilia ring with children. Michael Flynn Jr. was tweeting about that, had to resign. The administration got early flack. Since then, his father, Michael Flynn, has had to resign for being involved in secret meetings with Russia. And so that's what we're also seeing going on with the Trump administration. What's this conspiracy with the Trump administration and Russia? So conspiracy is the focus. And other stories we've seen in this same period of time are popular YouTube channels making mainstream headlines for doing something wrong. They said one conspiracy researcher killed his family. They said another crossed a line calling a hospital and asserting something was fake, offending a family. And he had legal implications for that. We're seeing all of these stories, and they're making the mainstream, and they have an agenda. And that agenda is to eventually censor us online. Those of us who seek truth and who speak truth. I pointed this out back when the Pizzagate story broke. I said then, this Pizzagate is a very obvious psychological operation playing on a real conspiracy in the world, and that is the trafficking of human beings for sex, children and adults worldwide. This has gone on for a very long period of time. It's all part of the sickness that is happening in this world, from needless war to needless sex slaves to poisonous food. Pizzagate was targeted. It was meant to play on a real thing, and it played to the demographic of the online truth community, which is mostly right-wing and conservative, and a lot of people who got sucked in by people such as Alex Jones, who were really fired up about Trump and wanted Hillary Clinton arrested. So then they gave him this story. And they said, see, oh, here's sex trafficking in Washington, D.C., which absolutely happens. For all of you Republicans who refuse to look at how sick your own party is, and both parties are absolutely sick, please do look into your own party. There's always stories written, even in the mainstream, about how much prostitution is up, how many little sex rings are going on in Washington, D.C. whenever the Republicans have their big events in D.C. There's more money in the Republican Party. There's a lot more selfishness among the... I don't want to get in an argument about parties. They're both sick. But your Republican Party, they're no angels. And, you know, if for any of you who just thought this all came back to Hillary Clinton, you know, I mean, you got to open your minds and really think about things. Sex trafficking's worldwide. Hillary Clinton's just a political puppet. Bill Clinton's just a political puppet. If you don't know, neither of those people were born with the last name Clinton. Not Bill, not Hillary. Bill was born Bill Blythe. His biological father died just before Bill Clinton was born. His mother remarried into the Clinton political dynasty, which goes back to the beginning of this country. Some of the founders were Clintons. That's why when you see this Clinton Foundation, that's not Bill and Hillary, people. Those are your New World Order masters who operate from the shadows. Not Bill and Hillary that so many of you conservatives are caught up on. That's the distraction. That's the, sparkly toy in front of your face while you're not seeing the real picture going on over here. So anyway, Birth of a conspiracy theory. There's an agenda to censor us. At the beginning of the Pizzagate thing, that James Alefantis came out and did an interview and said, there's these people online who are protected by certain laws behind their screen names, and there's nothing that the legal system can really do about it. But these people are causing real chaos in people's life. And after he did that interview, I said, watch, they're going to have a staged story of something going on at that pizza shop to make the truth seekers and truth speakers look even worse. And sure enough, it happened. So real quick, with regards to them attaching conspiracy theory to Donald Trump, I just want you to notice that in the language of gematria, conspiracy theory sums to 88, just like the name Trump. In the time I've been alive, I've never seen conspiracy theory attached to an administration like this. And remember, these administrations, they're all part of the ongoing agenda. No, I don't want to do this. These administrations, they serve the New World Order. The New World Order is interested in maintaining power. And one of the most dangerous things to their power at this day and age are the people in this world seeking information, putting out truth, and exposing the agenda. People such as myself. I have discovered how this gang operates by a code, a very intuitive, logical code to understand, and by learning this code, you can learn to see through propaganda in record time. So conspiracy theory, 88, Trump 88, this weekend, let's just remind what happened. Let's see, Truth Seeker. Exactly 43 days after Trump took office, on March 4th, a date written 4/3, the big news story became wiretapping. And I want you to notice that wiretap has gematria 43. So does the name Richard, as in Richard Nixon, who was replaced by Gerald Ford by the numbers Ford, also 43. They said that this story was first broke by a right-wing radio host, Mark Levin. Interesting it was a Mark, about a wiretap. And what have I been saying for months? Even before Trump won, the elections are all rigged. It's a selection, not an election. The whole voting thing's a puppet show, duping the people, just like the news. What I've been saying for more than a year is Donald Trump, what he is running on is right-wing radio. I've been saying this for more than a year. Donald Trump is right-wing radio from the 90s. Building the wall between Mexico, that's what all the right-wingers from the 90s used to talk about. Building the wall between Mexico. Donald Trump is right-wing radio. He's a puppet show. He's catering to a demographic of some of the least intelligent living in this nation. Those are the people who listen to right-wing conservative talk radio. There is no worse information in the world. There is no more idiotic information in the world. And sadly, this whole nation is full of right-wing talk radio. It's hard to find any other viewpoint. But this is what Donald Trump's administration is. Right-wing talk radio from the 90s, especially the wall, banning Mexicans. This is Donald Trump, just a stage show, catering to an audience. But think about it. 43 days after Inauguration Day, the wiretap that's a tribute to Richard Nixon and Watergate and his resignation. And as I've said, we'll see the Trump administration either end in a staged assassination or a planned resignation, all by the numbers. And real quick, just a little lesson on the word birth, since they use the word birth to start it off. Birth has the gematria of 33, like seed, like Genesis, which has to do with the word birth and beginning. 33, that special number. Of course, the story comes in the month of March. Wiretapping also has a gematria connection to Donald Trump, perhaps part of the reason. But no doubt we know why it happened 43 days after Inauguration Day. And real quick, I want to take a moment to address my critics, which are always putting out the same talking points about me. This past weekend, RussianVids did an interview of somebody who works in Hollywood, apparently. I've been telling you guys, RussianVids is paid for disinfo. He lives right next to YouTube's headquarters. Anyway, they took a moment in their interview to attack my work, and this guy he was interviewing that makes movies said, oh yeah, that guy, his work, he just, puts out all these numbers and they don't make any sense. I honestly don't know how somebody could watch any of my videos and say that. I'm always showing that how by seeing through this number code and seeing the way things line up through dates, you can tell how the news is manufactured by the numbers. And to understand that is crucial. I mean, what is more definitive evidence of seeing through propaganda than what I have revealed on this channel in the last few years? You know? It's like this every day. Every single day, news is manufactured this way. And I have thousands of proofs showing this. So I don't know how somebody could have an interview this past weekend saying that I put out all this number nonsense that doesn't mean anything. I mean, did that guy predict the death of Prince by the numbers, calling the exact numbers he died by? Did that guy predict Muhammad Ali's death at 74 and what it would signify? Did that guy say that the Oregon standoff to start 2016 would last 41 days, ending on February 11th? You know, did that guy call all the sports championships correctly in 2016? These are just a short list of things I've shown you can do with these numbers. And what's funny is RussianVids, who was doing the interview, he said, oh yeah, Zach, he's just all nonsense. He takes everything too far. And then he said all the numbers are really about is trademarking that the Freemasons did it. No, that's a really small-minded view of it. Trademarking is absolutely true. Let's not forget that TM for trademark has gematria of 33, just like Masonry, you know, just like secrecy, number we often talk about. That's part of it, but this code is something greater. This is something they operate by. RussianVids in his interview purposely made a point to say that me measuring from birthdays was nonsense. Now remember, RussianVids is paid for disinfo meant to make people look stupid, which he does very convincingly. It's sad how many people take his word worth anything. It's obvious that he's a moron for anyone who's intelligent. But so many people are duped by channels such as RussianVids, and RussianVids is purposeful disinfo. That's why he's telling people that when I measure from birthdays or measure from dates, it's meaningless. You know, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Measuring from dates is absolutely part of this gematria study, and if you read about gematria, it has a lot to do with the calendar system. No coincidence. RussianVids also, what he does in his videos, he on purpose spells words incorrectly to fit his point. Like he recently did a video on Apollo and 33. If you spell Apollo wrong, it sums to 33 like this, like RussianVids did in his video. Apollo is spelled this way. Apollo doesn't equal 33. RussianVids made a video about Apollo and 33. And that's probably on purpose. Because you see, someone intelligent will come along and say, oh, see, these people turning words into numbers. You know, they don't even know how to spell right. And those kind of comments get left on my channel. Understand, I'm the one who broke this knowledge to the masses. Nobody realized this or was revealing this before I came along. And as I've explained since video number 1, the reason I reveal what I reveal is because I took a long time to research that the media was actively coding to make sure I was giving people real knowledge that was truthful. And what I've explained many times is that from the time I was 18 years old, when September 11th happened, up until the time I was 30, I realized how the news would routinely put the same numbers in front of our eyes, especially 33 and 47. And for more than a decade, I asked what it was about. When I learned what gematria was and began decoding, a lot was revealed very quickly. You know, with regards to those super common numbers put in front of our faces in the news, notice that news has gematria of 47 itself. There's a reason. Not arbitrary. And it's more than just trademarking. It almost seems like it's subliminal programming. You have to ask yourself, why are people so programmed in this society by certain things? You'll only find the answers if you ask the right questions. And me finding gematria started when I was 18, asking why is 911 so important to emergencies? Because it was obvious to me that September 11th was staged on 911 as a national emergency for a very transparent and numerological reason. And 9/11's full of 11. On the 11th day, the towers that look like 11s in New York, the 11th state, the first flight AA-11. The buildings are 110 stories tall, 110, plus so much more. So RussianVids, if you're out there, the next time somebody talks about gematria, if you're going to be representing it, explain the greater significance. And don't tell people that measuring from dates is bullshit. I should mention that when they were criticizing me, these two guys were talking about how the earth is flat. So, that's also revealing. But real quick, to get back on the main point, Trump, conspiracy theory, trying to discredit the real truth seekers, the truth speakers. Trying to discredit the truth community is nothing new. It's why there's agents around such as RussianVids, people who promote false information, ridiculous information, distort the truth, such as RussianVids trying to take my information, but then manipulate it and make it wrong. There's also a reason that as time passes on, the media is stepping their game up. Right now we're seeing the media really crack down on this. And you know why? It's because we're reaching a critical mass. More people are waking up, and the more that wake up, the more dangerous it is for the powers that shouldn't be. So let's go through some more of this stuff Donald Trump's been attached to. Michael Flynn Jr. had to resign for tweeting that Hillary was part of Pizzagate. I predicted that there'd be some sort of event there. And it came. Supposedly an armed gunman, a conspiracy researcher, Edgar Madison Welch, showed up at Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C. Fake news gets real was CNN's headline that day. Edgar Madison Welch, the same gematria as fake news, the same gematria as molest, Sunday, Jesuit. Remember the Catholics, the Jesuit order made the day of worship Sunday. Divide and conquer, United States of America, relevant numbers to this nation, plus Donald Trump, a Jesuit. Think about molestation within the Catholic Church, the Jesuits. Just some gematria reminders, Washington, D.C., named after the 33rd degree Freemason George Washington. Washington, D.C., 137, the 33rd prime. Federal order, Clinton, Elephantis, Pizzagate, all 33 words. Pizza shop in Washington, D.C. False flag. Anyway, I'll link all these posts. Whole lot more information. Just want to remind you some of the fake news stories coded by the numbers attached to Donald Trump. Pizzagate and fake news, an exact match in reverse ordinal. David Seaman, the Jewish Zionist employed by the Huffington Post, recently released before putting out all this Pizzagate propaganda in the time of Pizzagate. Should we look at what David Seaman's subscribers are up to? His subscribers grow by thousands a day. David Seaman, who emerged out of nowhere. I mean, just think about the name. Zionist Jews mocking the people with made-up coded names. David Seaman. Oh my God, 153,000 subscribers.
Hey everyone. An explosive new claims made...
I don't want to get his video in here, but just a joke. David Seaman, people. I mean, you see, this is the problem with this world. People do not know how to critically think. People can't see the very obvious. People can't see the lies of 9/11, the very obvious lies. People can't see that a story such as Pizzagate is politically timed and ridiculous and absurd. So, people, they need to have their minds, forced to think, provoked to think. There needs to be something so undeniable that even the flimsiest of these minds that make up our society, a light bulb can go off. And that's also what I attempt with this research, to provide such an undeniable picture of what's going on. That more wake up. And, in the time I've been doing this, a lot of people have said that my research was the first thing that woke them. But again, a lot of people have come by and said, oh, Zach, his research doesn't make any sense. I think the earth is flat. People in the same breath who think the earth's flat think my research doesn't make any sense. like RussianVids and that guy who apparently makes Hollywood movies. With regards to targeting the online truth community, PK, popular YouTube channel, I always knew that PK was a shill because of the way he treated other people who tried to work with him, such as myself. I tried to share my research with PK and asked if he was interested in sharing it on his channel, and just for asking him if he was willing to share some of my research, he called me a cunt. Why? Him and I are supposedly both trying to expose the false flags in the media. The thing about PK is he always commented on what was very obvious about the bogus news stories. Stuff that any person who's not blind should be able to see. The news never looks real. You know, it's just so transparently fake, like the demolition of the towers on 9/11, such as the buildings exploding and things flying outwards. How could that happen from a plane impacting? And by the way, how could fiberglass wings cut through steel and concrete? Impossible. Impossible. And see, I knew it back then. I said, if people don't know that this is impossible, that means that they don't have any scientific understanding. And here we are in 2017, and some of us are having to argue with people about the shape of the earth. There's people that have been duped into thinking the earth is flat, something that's impossible. But anyway, PK always commented on the obvious and tried to be humorous. He never gave any real insight or knowledge into how the fake news is created or why it's created. He never talked about the greater agenda. These are the signs that his work wasn't really about truth. It was about entertaining people. It was about, presenting some people information that they'll understand, but not the people who refuse to see truth. They don't even need PK to show them what's so obviously fake about the news. PK became popular after the Boston Marathon bombing, making fun of how stupid the stage scene was. And it was a very stupid scene. It was a very staged scene. It was a very transparent scene. It shouldn't have fooled anyone, but in truth, it fooled the masses because they're unwilling to question. So PK, his work didn't really contribute anything. And when someone like myself comes along, who is actually contributing something and showing how this news is all worked out and planned by the numbers, Boston Marathon bombing, 93, propaganda, 93. And you probably saw the 330 over here, a lot like 33. There was a whole lot of 33 coded into the false flag 33, the blame bomber, Dozakar Sarnayev, 33 birth numerology, born on a very special date in the year 93, July 22nd. Got a lot of videos on the Boston Marathon bombing. But anyway, in all these videos, I break it down and show why they use these numbers, what they have to do with, what it's all about, how it's a ritual in numbers. If you have critical thinking, my work should make sense to you. It's funny listening to RussianVids and that guy criticize me and then close out their show saying people need critical thinking. Two guys who think the earth's flat, who think my work is nonsensical. Very funny. But anyway, PK. This guy becomes involved in a mainstream news story showing why the truth community is going too far and hurting people, and PK's story ends up being all by the numbers. The date he made the call synced up with the name of the hospital, connecting to the name of the girl, and this is just what it is. Now I understand why PK was calling me a cunt for asking him to show the information I'm revealing. PK, the reason he's been here is for this planned story at this time. Just hanging around, not really providing anything useful, and then being used in part of a psyop to become part of this ongoing agenda for why the online truth-speaking community needs to get censored. James Alefantis said this with the Pizzagate psyop. The news is putting articles like this. Facebook's saying this. We get PK, we get Justin Woolley, supposedly hurt his own family, murdering his own mother. Just listen to the name, Justin Woolley. Does that sound like a real name to you? Justin Woolley. Justin Woolley, like sheep, sheep wool. Justin Woolley, name gematria 51 like conspiracy. Those initials JW, 33, Justin like propaganda, like conspiracy theorist. We're seeing even commercials right now. Progressive Insurance, Pizza Hut, putting out commercials coated to the teeth in numbers, mocking conspiracy theory. Have you seen this? Progressive, lively little locksmith. They keep repeating that through the commercial. Lively little locksmith, 93, like conspiracy theorists, like propaganda. The commercial ends with men in their mother's basement. Stereotypes. They're playing recordings forwards and back. That girl's name in the progressive commercials, by the way, is Flo. You know, the symbolism's out there. These Masons, coding all their propaganda again and again. David Seaman, Pizzagate. It's all propaganda, people. It's all on purpose. It's meant to distract us from the real things we should be focused on. You know, as conspiracy researchers, as truth seekers, as truth speakers, we need to look at what's going on in the world and prioritize. We're being lied to every day for the sake of wars and building a police state. You know, there's poison in our food. These things cause real harm in people's lives. Soldiers, you know, at a young age get sent over to fight these needless wars. They wake up, they come back, they live a life forever damaged. Feeling guilt, feeling pain, having PTSD. We're all eating toxic food. Our lives are being shortened. You know, our minds aren't working as well as they should. How do those things compare with arguing about the shape of the earth? Does it matter what the shape of the earth is right now, based on what's going on? Also, by deluding yourself about things, you know, claiming things as fact that you can't prove, such as the shape of the earth, such as what our government's really up to with space. You know, just because they hoax you on TV, that doesn't mean that you know what they're really up to. You know, don't come to false conclusions. Somebody dangles a story in front of your face about Hillary Clinton running a sex scandal out of a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. You really think that's the sex scandal that matters in the world? Think for yourself. You know, question the information that's put before you. I'm so amazed by how many haters I have and how many people try to discredit me when I put out a skill that anyone can verify and do themselves and doesn't require any manipulation. I've never manipulated my viewers. I respect the truth. I'm not here to, you know, mislead in any way, shape, or form. I've said many times I'm just a person. I could be wrong in some things, but I always try to make sure that my opinions are based in evidence. And I give you evidence-based information always, very strong recurring pattern. The flimsiest part of what I presented in this whole thing was conspiracy theory equaling 88 and Trump. And if you take the time to go back and watch the, you know, going on 2 years of videos I've done covering the Trump campaign and now presidency, I've shown how many times these numbers have been coded into stories that are very specific about him. An undeniable amount. So I'll link all these blog posts. I'll link my video on Richard Nixon's resignation and Gerald Ford replacing him by the numbers. Stop supporting the shills. Stop supporting David Seaman, RussianVids, all these paid-for disinfo. Look at the gematria of RussianVids anyway. 47. I don't think it's a coincidence. Some things could be a coincidence, but that guy, very obvious troll, and now getting to interview somebody who does Hollywood movies. I mean, why would somebody who does Hollywood movies want to be interviewed by RussianVids, who's very clearly a moron? You know, just think about it. Again, somebody has exposed RussianVids for who he is. They've shown that he lives right next to the YouTube headquarters. The information's all out there. And if you missed my video from last week on what YouTube's all about, you better go check out my phone call to YouTube's headquarters. Very real agenda of shills on YouTube. And if you think I'm one of them, you are not a critical thinker, that's for sure. Another video I'll link down in the description is the Pizza Hut conspiracy commercial. I think if you just search Pizza Hut conspiracy, it should come up. Yeah, here we go. This Pizza Hut conspiracy came out right before the Pizzagate thing. Think about that. They're really running this commercial hard just right before. Right before Pizzagate. conspiracy theorist. So anyway, I'll link all these posts. You can check them out. Lots of interesting information to be aware of. Until next time, Truth Seeker.